Definitive guide for EA through EL fitment of AU motor. Since there are so many dumb shits out there who cannot get their facts straight and cannot use a search engine, considering this swap has been done thousands of times in the past and has been a common conversion for well over 10 years, and people still cannot get their facts straight. Fact number one: when fitting an EA, EB or ED with an AU motor, you do not have to cut the sump or modify the K-frame. I repeat, you do not have to cut the K-frame or sump in an EA, EB or ED Falcon. For fuck's sake, stop saying it, you idiots. Learn how to use a fucking search engine. This is an AU motor. This is an AU motor in an EB Falcon. This is the EB K-frame with the AU motor. As you can see, all you have to do is grind down the fins of the sump. That's it. Slot straight in if you do that. Simple, easy. No cutting, no plating, no modifying besides grinding down a few bits of alloy. That's it. Simple. God damn, get it through your fucking heads and stop spreading bullshit. Right. Now, besides that, you need to fit, if you are going the broadband manifold, an EFEL style manifold, because they have tucked away down in there the intake air temperature sensor. The EA, EB, EDs need an air intake temperature sensor. The AU one will not work with the E-series stuff unless you want to root around changing plugs. The EFEL style screws into the manifold. The AU one screws onto the manifold. It plugs in and then there's a bolt to hold it in place. If you want to run an E-series alternator, EFEL alternator, you need to trim off a mounting tab from down here, a mounting tab from down here on the sump, and you need to drill and tap the block to fit the E-series mount. You also need to make spacers. If you don't want to go through all that, you must run a 2-pin AU or BA alternator, and then it will bolt straight on as per normal and run with the serpentine system. To mount into an EB, ED, you use the EA, EB, ED mounts. You bolt them directly to the block and it will bolt straight in. For the wiring side of things, if you want everything to work properly, as it's supposed to, as it's designed to by the factory, you need to either run an EL style wiring harness, and you need to modify the plug going to the knock sensor, because they're a different type between EF, EL and AU. Or you get your EB/ED harness and you modify it to suit the log manifold, which is fairly the broadband manifold, which is fairly straightforward. The only extra things you've really got to do is add in your knock sensor. Besides that, if you're running the broadband manifold, all your heater pipes that run from the pump around the back and from the thermostat housing under the manifold are the same. From EF through to AU3, they will work. The other thing you need to do is to swap the thermostat housing, because AU does not have the ECU temperature sensor on the thermostat housing. Now, from what I've been told, I haven't actually done this myself, but apparently EFEL, if you tap into the factory sensor at the back of the head on the AU, it will use it. The other thing you need is, on an EB/ED, or EA/EB/ED, you need the temperature sensor for the gauge cluster in the dash. Right, that's the basics. I will now go and show you one with a log manifold on it. This is an AU motor in an EB with the log manifold. Note, you need to change the pipe that comes out of the back of the water pump, runs around the back of the motor and down to the inlet for the heater. You need to change the pipe that comes out of the thermostat housing and goes under the manifold. If you want to run the serpentine system with a log manifold, you will need an XH long reach belt tensioner, which is an obsolete part. You cannot buy them new anymore. They are not available. You cannot buy that type of tensioner new anymore. The difference is this kick over in the casting, kicking the tensioner wheel over to clear the manifold. EFEL will not work with the log manifold. Now, as far as the distributors, if you need to add a distributor, remove the thing that is in there in the first place, remove the drive gear from there, and remove your drive gear from the distributor and swap them over. The AU has a far higher tensile strength on the gear, and if you put the stock E-Series gear on the distributor into an AU, it will chew the teeth off and destroy the auxiliary shaft, meaning you will not have spark and you will not have oil pressure. Besides that, if you are running aircon and you are using a log manifold, you will need the log manifold style mount. If you are running an EFEL type, you will need the round extensions and an EFEL style pump. Besides that, bolts on. You might need a longer bolt for the top. That's it. Now, I will show you one that has got all the EB/ED set up on it. This is one using the EB/ED style belt setup. This one does not have aircon on it, but the timing case, if I can get it to look down there, Kind of, not really. Too much crap in the way. The timing case is different between EA, EB, ED and EF, EL. If you want to put the EB, ED harmonic balancer on it, the timing marks will not line up. You will either have to make new timing marks on your harmonic balancer to suit the appropriate timing cover, or swap the timing cover with the harmonic balancer. Besides that, same story as with EF-EL alternator onto AU. You will need to trim stuff, you will need to drill and tap the block. Yet again, this one's got a modified harness, including the knock sensor. Apart from that, same as before. Now this is an EF-EL style K-frame, and you can quite clearly see the difference between EB-ED and EF-EL. The EF-EL is much bigger, much thicker, and that is why you need to cut the SUMP. You can cut the K-frame and rebox it, although some engineers are extremely fussy about that because of the fact that it is classified as a structural modification. In general, I will recommend cutting the SUMP and plating it if you're fitting an AU motor into an EB or ED. Here is a modified SUMP off of a Barra for EB-ED, but essentially the same idea as the AU SUMP. Trim the fins, smooth it off, done. Bolts in. Now, other notes regarding fitting AU into EA, EB, ED, EF-EL. AU motors are a higher compression ratio. You put an AU into an EA, EB, ED using the stock timing and the stock ECU, it will ping on 91. You will either have to get your ECU retuned using a J3 or put up with running 95 at the minimum the whole time, or run it on straight gas. For fitting an AU motor into an EF, you can use all the stock EF stuff on it, with the exception of the knock sensor, because the knock sensor screws into the block on EF-EL and bolts onto the block with AU. So yet again, you'll have to change the plug to suit your AU type, and that's it. Besides that, same as a distributor, pull your bit out of your EF-EL where the distributor would go, swap it onto the appropriate part, put it in. The AU crank angle sensor will work with the EF plug-in system. Besides that, your cam angle sensor, as I say, which goes inside where the distributor used to be on the earlier models, and the EL. Personal recommendation, if doing an EA-EB-ED, is to put an EL ECU in it, so at least it can take a knock sensor and it can figure out timing associated with that. The timing parameters aren't great, but it can compensate slightly, and it will trim timing over a period to try and stop it from pinging. You still will more than likely have to run it on 95 at a general fuel level. Right. Besides that, I hope that this guide will stop idiots from spreading bullshit that they got no idea about. This is the definitive guide. This is how you do it. Now learn how to use a bloody Google search engine or something. Search for this video, like this video, share this video to stop bullshit being spread. Thank you very much. Have a good day.